This gentleman to my right and your left, he's going to make major noise, not just in the Big East, but in the country. He's a Rice High School alumnus, 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. My pleasure to have Kemba Walker. Definitely pleasure, man. Absolutely, yes. And talk about how much you learned in you know, coming off the bench and making a valuable contribution. How much you learned in doing that, especially with UConn making it all the way to the Final Four.
Well, I learned a lot, you know. I learned a lot, you know, especially, you know, having A.J. Price in front of me. You know, he's a great player, you know, big games. He always, you know, did the right things, and he knew what to do. So he was such a, you know, great vocal leader on the court, and you know, that's something that I'm trying to incorporate into my game. You know, just being more vocal on the court. So that's something I'm trying to take from AJ.
And what are the things you worked on in your off season to get your game better? Because of course, you know, a lot of pro scouts are looking at you. You know, definitely, but you got to focus on the matter at hand. So what are the things you worked on as not just as an individual player, but as a team player?
Yeah, well, as a team player.
Yeah, and individual.
Well,
too,
of course, you know. Of course, my jump shot, you know, last season a lot of guys backed up off me, you know, making me shoot the jump shot, and I wasn't really hitting it consistently. So, you know, I tried my hardest, you know, try to keep my shot the same, and you know, try to make more shots consistently.
Wow, and talk about like the honor of being a McDonald's All-American, because not many local New York City guys have been in the game. So talk about the honor and how gratifying it was to represent this city.
It was great. It was great because, you know, before me, you know, I can't even remember the last time we had McDonald's All-Americans. Matter of fact, I think the last All-Americans we had was Andre Barrett, Talik Brown, and Omar Cook. So, you know, it's been a while. So, you know, to make that game was a special honor. And, you know, along with me was Sylvan Landsberg. So, you know, I think we both did a pretty good job at, you know, representing our city.
Absolutely. I know you had that nice highlight over Drew Holiday. You know? Like, talk about, like, you know, when that happened, you're like, whoa, like on the national stage, like your energy, your heartbeat was pumping.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. You know. Well, you know, before the game, all my friends they all told me, you know, make sure you get a dunk, make sure you get a dunk. So, you know, I saw the fast break opportunity, and I just thought about it, and I know it was time. It was time. So, you know, I just went up, and he just happened to jump with me, and everything just went from there.
Wow. And one more question about playing for Coach Calhoun. The lessons he's instilled and the example he's led with his toughness with all the adversity he's had. Talk about how that's going to really make a lasting impact on you.
Well, you know, Coach, great guy. You know, since I met him, you know, he was a great guy. You know, when I met him, I knew I wanted to play for him. You know, and especially all the players that, you know, that went through the program and played with him. You know, I met a lot of the guys, and you know, they told me how, you know, how much he has your back and how good of a person he is off the court. Not only off the court, on the court, he's a tremendous coach. You know, lets you know when you're doing bad, but he also lets you know when you're doing good. So, you know, him, you know, falling off the bike, you know, breaking 6 ribs and getting back on the bike, riding 16 miles, and that just shows how tough he is, and you know how much he loves life. So, you know, he's a great man.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And talk about, you know, like you're from the Bronx originally and everything and that tradition. Have you talked to someone like a Nate Tiny Archibald, who, you know, is a Bronx legend, you know, and I've had the honor to know myself. Like, have you talked with him or any other great athletes?
I actually got the opportunity and the honor to work out with Nate Archibald a couple years ago. You know, I was working out with him in Gauchos about, you know, 2 times a week. You know, and the biggest thing he wanted me to get right was my jump shot. So, he kind of helped me a lot on that also.
Wow. Well, Kemba, I got to say, I'm looking forward to seeing major things from you for sure. I know you're going to do your thing, and UConn will be back at the top of the Big East for sure. Thank you for being on so much to talk.
No problem at all.